Yeah.
This is going to be last.
Do you have a gerbil?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Especially if you listen to the end of the song. Shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the SUPHUB podcast. Today we're going to be talking about boards, purchasing of boards. There's loads of people getting onto the water or want to get onto the water, and myself and Ian get asked these questions quite a lot. So we thought we'd give you a little bit of a rundown. There's loads of good places and information out there to find out all this info. However, we thought we'd do another little one and just add to the volume.
To add to the noise.
To just add to the noise.
Hopefully you clear up the noise, but yeah.
Like a friend of mine the other day messaged me because she wanted to buy a board. So it's like, it's always the same thing about going, okay, well, what you're using it for,
Yeah.
how, where you're going to be going out on the board, what kind of thing do you want to get out of it, you know, what's your skill level like, if you have never been on the paddleboard before, what's your water confidence like. So there's always like certain questions. I think a lot of people can get kind of bogged down when you're looking because there's so much, especially online. There's just so much info, whereas probably a couple of rules of thumb that will just kind of keep you right, and you don't have to spend like thousands of pounds, especially starting off. But it's also it's good to be aware of a couple of different factors and facets, I think.
Yeah.
And that's where I'll just boot it over to you.
Yeah. So I suppose like our big thing I would say is I refer to it as the 3 Ps. So it's the person, the purpose, and the price. And basically, if you can sort of conjure answers to questions around those 3 Ps, then you'll have the information you need to select the right sort of board. So we ask people 5 questions, and on the spot, I'm probably going to embarrass myself and forget them, but I have them cut and paste and send them out. But it's basically, you know, in terms of the person, we're asking, you know, height and weight, essentially, just to understand the physicality of the person riding the board. And we're also asking a level of water confidence. And then in terms of the purpose, we want to know sort of, the way I ask people is I say 80% of the time, where are you going to be using it? Like on what type of body of water? Because that should really lead the type and style of board that you're going to choose. Then we've got price. So like, you know, what price works for you, and I tend to say to people that doesn't necessarily have to be a number. A lot of people will have a budget, but some people won't like necessarily saying their budget. So we tend to sort of offer them, you know, cheap as chips, somewhere in the middle, or only the best will do. And sort of once you've got all of those questions wrapped up together, you start to have a really good idea of what sort of board, amidst the plethora of choice that is out there, is going to sort of suit that person. And then so I suppose we can go on types. One thing I will say, and I've said this in like another video I've sort of put out on our Instagram channel, that talking about selecting boards, basically, I think price is an often overlooked thing, and it irritates me to a degree, because I think ultimately you have to be realistic. It's very easy to become quite snobby and arrogant about paddling and the kit and all of this sort of stuff, but the reality is, right, people, you know, it's why I always go back to those 3 Ps. It's you know, the person, purpose, price. Like, you have to consider all those factors, and I think there's arguably there's too many people out there that just have a commercial interest in selling whatever boards they've got in stock. And so, you know, the price point sort of almost can sometimes get shifted to the side because they're just sort of saying, oh well, this is the board for you. And it's like, well, is it really? Like, if you know, the reality of the world, and I think as well, without going too far into randomness, but I just think the way of the world going is you're going to end up with a lot more direct to market. So, you know, you've got all these very good paddleboard brands. Like, there's a reason why, you know, you have leading paddleboard brands. They've got R&D departments. They've spent years investing in the design. You know, they're not just, you know, the brands and stuff that are copying that design and buying it from the factory next door to the one that's producing the decent one. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's a reason why some boards cost a bit more. And generally speaking, a lot of that, certainly when you're moving from like the cheapest boards out there up to that mid-range, the difference there is actually more in the accessories than it is.
That's what I was going to say.
The board itself. But yeah.
Yeah, the accessory thing, I always kind of liken it back to, just because I used to play drums, so like musical instruments, is the board is only one aspect of it, the physical board, but actually the accessories is a big factor. Some of the boards you don't get paddles with it, or you get a very basic paddle with it, and you may be better off just getting a board that maybe isn't quite as expensive and going for a better paddle, which will make it more enjoyable and more user friendly at the start. It's like one thing I noticed when I bought my iRocker, it's like my pump, the triple thing pump compared to Donna's. It's like, it just makes it so much easier, so much more enjoyable, because it's quick, it's easy. I can pump up 2 boards where a single chamber one will take, you know, a lot longer. So it's little things like that. If you're going to be if you go in for a walk as well, or trying to carry it as well, the bag is a bit of a factor. I think that gets overplayed by the manufacturers, to be honest with you. When you see like the rucksack and you can tell there's not a board in there when it's like still high up on them. Because you go in, really? You know, you go for a decent walk.
You go for like 13 to 15k in a bag.
Oh
you see that weight, it's visible.
Oh yeah, big
and you
time.
feel it.
Yeah, massively. So it's like, it's the setup of it, and it's, again, I think people have to kind of just step back a bit and just be a bit more honest with themselves about going, well, how many times am I going to use it? And where am I going to do it? And is speed an issue, key? And like, because that could...
It's all which goes back all to purpose.
All back to purpose. Because it may be good for some people, you know, to... in not necessarily wanting a really big, long, stable board if you're quite nimble and quick and you want to be doing surf. And, you know, there's so many different attributes to it. But you just certainly don't have to spend a lot of money to get out there and enjoy. Yeah.
And I think that's it. It's also, it is just mind-boggling to, you know, if you come at this. I had a young lady recently, her and her boyfriend experienced paddleboarding, and they loved it, and they decided they wanted boards. They got in touch and they were like, you know, what would you recommend, and this, that, and we went through the whole, these are the 5 questions we ask. With them, we asked a few more, because it was quite interesting, where they were sort of trying to find a board that marries both of them, you know, which adds an additional challenge. But you've also, one thing I spoke about with them, which again is another factor that I think can sometimes get overlooked, is look at the longevity in the board, not just in its own durability, but look at longevity in the form of progression. So like for example, you know, someone could buy an all-rounder board because they're very focused on getting started and you know, feeling that sort of stability and comfort, right? So just getting comfortable with it. And I think sometimes that, you know, you can see there are certain people that either, you know, and this is why we ask about water confidence, right? If they've got a really good, strong level of water confidence, but they're paddling around here and their ultimate ambition is to sort of start moving around, not just go around in circles and mooch.
Good word.
Yeah, love the word.
I taught you that.
But yeah, so you know, we would I would encourage most people to try and buy a touring board for this sort of area of water, because you know that builds in that sort of level of progression. And I feel like they ended up they went for a sort of 11.6 tourer, which would suit them both, and you know, I've seen them posting pictures and loving it, and that's, you know, I feel like that's a really good thing for them, that, you know, that's going to last them a long time, because ultimately they're not going to get bored of that after a year of like having time on the water, feeling super confident on it. You know, that board is going to last them wherever they want to take it, wherever they want to go, and whatever they want to do with it, that will last. Whereas like the first one they sent me was like a 9.8 all-rounder, which, you know, yeah, would have worked, but after a few months they'd have been like, oh, I want something with a bit, you know, it's going to get me across the water a bit quicker and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's an interesting factor I would say some people can miss, is like look at the board's longevity in terms of development, not just its construction and durability. Babble about on this for hours, but it always comes back to purpose, person, price.
Yeah.
And you can't go wrong. Like if you make sure you covered those points and you've had a sensible discussion with someone that's being honest with you, then I think
that's a key thing. Also, it's like it's good once you know, everyone's trying to be a bit more eco-conscious and everything, so that is a thing for me, where you look into kind of the brand and seeing what they're trying to do. And like we were saying this the other day, like you noticed with the new boards that have just arrived, how what was it? I think it was like where the fins were protected with the cardboard and not the polystyrene now. Yep. And all these little things, I think, to me, you know, play a big factor.
Yeah. So I talk specifically about that point actually, because it is like, that's really interesting. So I think the direction of travel is very much on that sort of more environmentally considered, more sustainable, all of that sort of stuff. Do I think we're going to suddenly lose inflatable boards because everybody's worried about the volume of plastic that's going out with them? No. Like ultimately, the sport is going to continue, and inflatables is going to be the bulk of that.
You must be able to recycle it some way.
I think
a buyback system would be amazing.
Well, I think that's got to be the next sort of step.
And I still think we should do 3D printing for the replacement fins and stuff.
Well, I think that's sort of,
'cause that's easy.
I think the early prototypes are happening. You know, it's not. I don't think it'll be long before you 3D print your whole board. I really don't think it'll be long. And I say that from the basis of, if you look at the boards that are being put out there as the most environmentally friendly, sustainable, like these beautiful wooden boards that are coming to market. So, and that's whether it's handcrafted down in Cornwall, Otter, or whether it's, you know, handcrafted in Germany with Board Lab and Fanatic. Starboard have been doing. Starboard, I've got a credit actually to say they've been consistently over the last few years very visibly vocal and having a real sustainability roadmap. Yeah. You know, planting mangroves for sales of boards, stuff like that, you know, all their wrapping. Fanatic of, like, even in the 2 years that I've been, you know, buying a lot of Fanatic stuff, the progression in a lot of their stuff and like the Board Lab collaboration that's just come out, but also just their general packaging and everything, like it's a total evolution, much more sort of recyclable materials, no single-use plastics. That was a great example, the little cover of the fin. That was a lovely touch. Like, I didn't know that was happening or anything, but when I opened it, that was like, for me, I was thinking, that's just like a super simple thing. It's literally a cardboard cut slip, if you like, that they just put over the fin. Now, that used to be this big sort of what looked like an old armband for swimming that used to cover the fin in transit, so when it's being packaged up. So, like, again, that's just like, now it's a simple step they've made, serves the purpose of protecting the fin, but it's recyclable. It's because
it's one good thing, like SUP Boarder magazine and SUP Boarder, which is really good channel and magazine, like really good. Probably the go-to.
Yeah. I think they've done an amazing job, and
that's
like
something
having
that
watched from when they started,
Yeah.
and the stuff they're doing now, and I think they're awesome. I think they've done brilliant.
Yeah, big time. I looked at so many of those videos when I was first started getting into it and looking. But that's something that they've been pushing, and you see it more and more.
But also that just their evolution in terms of like they've slickened it, they've professionalized it. Just the volume of kit that they have now gone to, and like we've spoken before about like talking about, you know, comparing the range of carbon boards or paddles, sorry. And we can, like, we've got a really nice broad selection of that, but you know, they're set up to deliver that as a service. So, and for me, what is it? 25? Is it 25 quid a year? 26 quid a year for like the
past.
SUP?
Yeah.
It's not
much.
Like when you when you break it down, it's a couple of quid a month, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's some really like, and that's me, right? So I'm a paddle SUP fanatic in the sense of I will, you know, I just consume all that stuff and I love it. Like, they've just got so much content on there, which is
it's great.
Yeah. And that's not exclusive to them, but I just think from a sort of broad perspective, I do think there's a lot of positivity in every review. I do, but I also see that it's difficult. You know, a lot of the kit and equipment, you know, it's not about putting it down, but it's trying to find a way of comparing real value in the boards and what element of, you know, this brand's 9.8 versus this one's 9.8 is.
And a lot of things are kind of, it's so subjective with some of it, unless you're talking specifically about materials, because who's riding it? Yeah. Whereas someone will notice a big difference in, you know, a board, but
go check them out. SUP Boarder Pro.
Can you sing the song?
No.
What?
No.
Do boo 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 do do. No.
What?
It's great. That's it. No, that's literally it. It's that snippet. Doom doom doom. Do. Donna likes.
You should send that clip to them and see if they'll use it.
Send me a hat or some gin.
But they, so they've, well, we'll talk about wing foiling another time, but they've just released some really cool videos on that. That's quite cool. That'll be a big thing in the next 2 years.
I think paddles, I think a lot of the manufacturers need to pull their fingers out and not offer such a poor paddle at the beginning.
Well, I think
that when they do packages, I think the packages are a little bit misleading sometimes. I know with my package, I'm really happy with. Sorry. Well,
it was self-created, and like he still couldn't let it go. And in the last in 2 weeks ago, you were complaining about being the Innuendo guy. And like just talk about cementing your position as Innuendo guy.
I'm not. It's not. Sorry, I'm never. Yeah. Anyway, anywho, the thing with
your package,
my package, the thing I'm not happy about. No, it was the paddle, because that, you know, it just that massively let it down. Where the board, like I jumped on that board again the other day when mine was getting fixed by.
Steve Devlin.
Sweet Devlin.
Boards. Yeah.
Boom. Thanks very much for that.
So
Amazing.
Steve is the lead shaper, in my opinion, in Northern Ireland.
I haven't a clue.
And and he very kindly fixed a couple of dings on both of our boards. Steve, he's the man.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
So I was going out on my board again, and it was so much fun. It's just a good fun board.
Yeah.
But if I went to grab that paddle now, it's utter crap.
Yeah.
Like, it really is bad, and that doesn't get you much enjoyment. I remember going out with you on like one of the dawn patrols, and you went bloody, and you said, "Look at the flex in that."
Yeah.
Like it would just, and then you threw me over
The flex in the actual
In
blade
the
itself,
blade.
yeah, because it was whatever poly, whatever.
Yeah, it was made. It was rubbish. And as soon as you passed me one of yours, which I think was just, wasn't like a carbon elite. Amazing.
No, it was a basic.
It was a basic one. You just went, night and day.
And I think that's.
And sorry, that takes me back to the why I was saying about music and drums is like sometimes you can get like you don't have to have the best drum kit.
Yeah.
You can have a starter drum kit, but make sure you get decent cymbals.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to make it enjoyable. There's nothing worse than going, Phil Collins in the air tonight and then dun 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 doink. It's like it kills it.
I always remember
I know
the
that
very
reference
first
anyway, so.
the very first board, like so Imagine Ginger, the first board and paddle I ever brought was I remember the guy in the surf shop said to me that you should, like, whatever you spend on a board, really you should be looking at sort of 50 to 70% of that same value on a paddle, right? Now, at the time, we were like, here's a man upselling, whatever. But actually, you're right, because, and there's, Steve West did a big thing on the whole, he wrote an article recently that's been shared a lot, on the whole, the paddle is your samurai sword and all of that. And it is, like, that is the reality, like
Is your samurai sword.
Yeah, the quality of your paddle
Go on.
can determine massively the how well how well you perform on your paddle, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So
I just need to read the article. That sounds quite funny.
yeah, no, it's good. I'll share
I'm stealing your wine, by the way.
Go for it.
Antioxidants.
Yeah, so don't underplay the importance of the paddle, and I would say that. So, like, I'll give a good example, and let's go specific, right? So, when someone comes to us and says, "I just really want the cheapest kit I can get my hands on," now the cheapest sort of package we tend to endorse is around £300, like direct from the suppliers, the Aquaplanet Pace or Max, and depending on what time of year and volume of interest they've got in it will determine how much they're pricing it at the time. But that's circa £300. Now the board itself is decent, like it's decent enough. It's fairly straightforward construct, but the paddle is just useless.
Yeah, so why?
And so what you'll find is, okay, yeah, you spend say 320 quid on that package. Within a year, you're easily spending. You'll be spending 100 quid to buy yourself a much better paddle. Whereas you can do that, you can go and buy, there are certain brands that would, their basic entry level paddle will last you for as long as you want. And then like ultimately I'm someone who believes firmly that the paddle is always probably the first thing people upgrade anyway.
Yeah.
But there's other brands, and Fanati is a good example. I think Red would be a good example, but they're that just the far end of the price spectrum. But
do you like Red's package?
Well, we were joking about this the other day, right? So yeah. I took delivery of the first Red board in the school the other day, or a few weeks back, and the paddle came out, and it's just where it's new and it's different. So like different brands design things differently, and I'm so used to every brand I've used with an adjustable paddle has written the measurements on it, so that as you pull it out, it goes like, the height measure is there. So as you pull it out, it goes like 190 to 2 meters. So like, and I want my paddle length at about 196 is 197 is ideally where I like it. And Dylan, how is that? This is amazing. There needs to be a study in SUP Innuendo. Like it really, it's endemic. So yeah. But anyway, I pulled the shaft of the red paddle. Come on, boys, let's see if we can contain it.
You can't contain it.
And it did it the reverse way. So it was like, so immediately I'm having to do maths in my head to work out how high I want this paddle. And that, as a user experience, I was like, oh, that's not ideal. But it was a lovely paddle. It was a great paddle once I'd done a very simple math equation. But it's that's just me being an idiot and using something new and different. But like there's a lot of those brands that, and I think basically, you look at. Oh, I say that. I was about to say that if you spend £400 or north, you're going to get a decent paddle with it. But the reality is, at the moment, you're not, because we're in a different market, right? So the economics have sort of gone out the window, and we're in a position where demand is exceeding supply. So you're getting a lot of white label brands that are, if you compare, there's probably a bunch of them you could batch together. They all come out of the same factory. They've just got a different logo stuck on them. And they're I feel like there's a lot of brands like that are just charging more than that board is ever worth.
Oh yeah, without question.
And that just irritates me. And that's the business world, and that's what happens. And there's demand, so go for it. But I just sort of think
also as well is like what people don't really think of as well, especially if you're not doing any other form of water sports. It's like you spend X amount, let's say £400, and you've got your paddleboard, and within that package, it comes with a leash, the bag, a pump hopefully, and a paddle, and then you're going, cool, sweet, let's get on the water, wetsuit, buoyancy aid, and all those things, and that opens up, that's a lot more expense. And I think people don't really take that into consideration well. And not that you need to spend loads of money, and it shouldn't be an expensive hobby or an expensive sport. And it really doesn't need to be. And you can have great fun, paddling loads of different places on whatever board. Like we do it when we've jumped on to on the Mistral board. And it's great. And you jump on it because you've been on whatever other board's teaching, and then you jump on that because the other board's gone out, and you're going, oh, this is sweet. Look at this. You can't fall off. And it's
the Mistral. I've got to say, so just to fill anyone in that's listening. So the Mistral board was a sort of 10-foot. It's what I would call. Anyone? Hello.
Anyone? Hello.
Hello. Is anyone in the echo chamber? Echo chamber. Echo chamber. The Mistral board is what I would call a hybrid. So we talk very often about there being the two basic types of board, which are all-rounders and tourers. I've seen. I'm just going to go spit, right? So, all-round boards, historically, everyone went, oh yeah, they're all-rounders, they do everything, blah, 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 blah. You can surf on them, you can do everything, but all of that is true. And then they were always sold as, oh, you can go anywhere, do anything, do a bit of surfing, and they're a bit more stable. And the reality is that the way the touring boards have progressed, and just the construction technologies and everything that has now evolved, I struggle to encourage people to buy an all-round board, and that's me being perfectly honest. Largely, that's because the majority of people that I'm advising paddle in this sort of area where we just don't get regular surf, and surf isn't on their purpose list, right? So it's generally speaking, it's an easy, touring is the sort of route you want to go. Now, the all-rounder boards are more rounded at the front and rounded at the back, generally a bit wider in the middle. The touring boards are more pointed at the front, a flat back, and tend to be a bit longer but narrower. The whole sort of, oh, you can surf on an all-round board, I just don't buy into. And the reason for that is because if you're buying a 6-inch inflatable paddleboard because you want to SUP surf, you're not, you're doing it because you want to muck around in white water, and you're not like going out and surfing 6 foot plus waves, right?
Yeah.
And if you're doing that, if you want to sup surf 6 foot plus waves, I'm sorry, but you're not going to do it on a all-round board. Realistically, you're going to go and buy a sup surf specific board, and that's just the reality of it. And actually, if you're in the water and you're just playing around in fun waves like up to 4 foot or whatever, you can do that on a touring board. Like, you can surf that just as well. So I just don't see that argument. And also, when it comes to stability, you can the way the touring market's gone, you can buy boards with that sort of inbuilt stability just through increased volume in the board. Or
I don't think they're more stable. I think they're only stable in flat.
Well,
if you're going out in the chop a little bit of chop at all,
Yeah.
I think all-rounders are far more unstable.
Yeah.
Personally, I just don't think they are as good.
Yeah, because they don't cut through the water. The water hits them and gives them a good whack.
And it gives them a good whack.
Yeah.
So it's like, so they're not more stable. They're stable in stationary, and in flat water. But if you're going across somewhere, and if I want, and also as well, it's what I always say, like, about, it's like riding a bike and your cadence and making sure that you go in. If you're in a little bit of wibbly wobbly weather that I noticed you've started using.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
Really
I know,
good.
but I mean,
but
I've totally taken the wibbly wobbly from you as a phrase.
It's
it
great.
needs a thing.
It's all wibbly wobbly. It's perfect. But if you're doing that, then if you're going really slow and tentative or on an all rounder, it's going to be bloody horrible. But if you're on a touring board or a longer, more narrow, and you're going a little bit faster, then it's a hell of a lot easier to handle and manage.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's as if the all-rounders are more aimed now at like a lot lighter and shorter, smaller riders, and maybe to the youth level, not even youth, but like younger, like pre-teen.
But again, right? So there's a natural barrier for me recommending an all-rounder to a younger person, so like a teen or a young kid.
Yeah,
it's because you're talking with like a stick-thin kid that's like standing on a 33-inch wide board. So like automatically they're reaching over here to try and paddle.
Yeah.
And you're like, actually, let's make it easy for them. You could stick them on a starboard 14-foot sprint, 19 inches wide, and they'd fly.
Yeah.
But in reality, you're gonna I think you want for younger kids, you just want a narrower board. The big thing with kids, right? Listen, if you've got kids and you're gonna stick them on a paddleboard, here's what you need to do.
I like this.
You need to tell them to do a step back turn, because kids can do it all day long. They can run up and down your paddleboard all day long. So the way to teach a kid to control their board and turn it is to get to the back. We spend God knows how many hours of the year telling people this, but it is like in all seriousness, if you show your kid one thing on whatever paddleboard you put them on, get them comfortable, get into the back of the board to turn it, and they'll just find it so much easier than the long drawn out sweep strokes and the cross deck turns and all this sort of stuff that us heftier adults need to do. They get them doing step back turns, and you'll have a future Michael Booth, Connor Baxter, Andre Crater. Name your favourite. And
Lucky's gone for it.
I love them all.
He's gone for it.
Man envy of all of them. They're awesome athletes.
Athletes?
They are.
It's a bit like darts, isn't it? Colin.
I would love to see you say that to Andre Crater's face.
Oh, he can't understand English, can he?
Yes, he can.
No.
He can. Anyway.
Is dance?
But yeah, no, that's my rant. Not my rant, but that's my advice on boards in general, and there's
Also, the thing I
just
would
killed the market for all rounders.
Well, stop making them. Stop making them. Stop making rubbish paddles, and stop making inadequate things that is like there's no need for as well. Unless you're going to sell them for a tenner and keep them for like a child paddling school, then don't make them. They're rubbish, and it's wasting resources. And it's not much more. You don't have to spend much more to get that bit of better of a paddle that you'll keep for ages.
Yeah.
To me, I can't remember what my point was going to be then. I was going to make a good point.
I have a good question for you.
Go on.
You talked about a piece of kit that you wear over your wetsuit. Help you float. What's it called?
A buoyancy aid.
How do you spell it? B-U-O-Y. Buoyancy. It's not buoyancy.
No.
Buoyancy. That's a good one, Dylan. Well done.
Way to argue that.
Yeah.
It's not
Just
a
going
good
back to
way
last
doing
week's
it.
podcast, eh?
I know, yeah. Should have done it. That was laughing. It took me all week to work it out.
Yeah.
It took me all week to spell it. We got it.
Buoyancy.
Buoyancy.
He's got a
There you
point.
He hasn't.
Don't look at me. He's got a point.
Buoyancy. You have to say buoyancy now every
Yeah,
time. You
every
take it
time.
off.
Life jacket.
Put on your buoyancy.
No, it's
A
not.
life.
It's not a life jacket. A life jacket is a
You're
very different
pointy
thing.
this evening.
I am
Like
very
it.
pointy. I've had a day of it, and I'm like, we just need to. But yeah, no, it's not. No, there is a big difference between a buoyancy aid and a life jacket. Do you know that?
Yeah.
What is it? Tell the people. Tell the people. Tell my mum. Go. She's
Yeah,
there.
close it off with the difference between a buoyancy aid and a life jacket.
A life jacket's got a whistle. Boom!
A life jacket is more for sailing, and it will self-inflate when you either pull a toggle or when you hit the water. It's designed to keep you alive and not drown in water, whereas a buoyancy aid is simply to support you when you're in water.
There you go.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
I didn't know.
Calling me a horse?
Oh, just referring to an earlier conversation about one.
What?
I just don't know what to say. I've surrounded myself with people that a few weeks back I really respected, but over the
Oh, I've never
over the
respected
last over the past few weeks,
It's gone into adoration.
they've taught me things that I did not want nor need to know.
Like what?
I'm not going to
Please.
lower the tone for our listeners.
Somebody's.
But yeah, no. So that was vaguely interesting chat around kit and
Yeah.
boards and all of that sort of stuff. Drop any comments in. Let us know what you think. But ultimately,
That's what I was
what the
gonna
3P?
say.
Oh, go on,
That's what I was going to say.
go.
Kind of. Sorry, this is really bad.
Hmm?
It's really bad. Just not getting bogged down in all the advertising jargon and the rubbish that a lot of manufacturers put out. Don't forget, manufacturers are trying to sell and differentiate the products. So it's like when they say an all-rounder and when they say touring, you don't just have to go on a boring tour like a kayaker on a touring board. You can do so much. And it's that a lot of people, myself included, will read the description and go, so I can't do this with that board.
Touring
Do you
boards
know-
are undersold because like
Touring
you
boards
know,
are
12,
massively
a nice
undersold.
12.6 tourer, you can race on it. You can do everything.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
But
great.
I think
Great
that, don't get bogged down with
Yeah,
it. Jump on any board and you'll be loving it. And yeah, you know, you'll find your way. And probably one of the best bits of advice is, for me, before you go and purchase a board, is go
and try 'em.
Go and try some.
Yeah.
Go to a school, have some lessons, speak to them, be open, be candid. Go, can I try a couple?
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be
That's what
buying
we're-
one.
you know.
And, you know,
They're
go
not,
and try.
it's interesting the number of schools I see that set up and just have the same board across the spectrum, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that for me that was like always a no-no, in the sense of, like, if someone's ever going to come to the school, one, there's going to be all sorts of different shapes and sizes of people and water confidence of people that turn up, so let's have a board for everyone. But also, if you've got people turning up and part of what you're doing is helping people find the right kit for them, like, show them that, give them those options. Like, this year we're going to be housing 5 different board brands, and like we've got there pretty much the whole range of each one, and yeah, like, it's just,
And what else?
what else?
What other boards have you got?
Dragon boards, mega board,
Oh, that weird yoga
race
thing.
boards, yoga mat, big star boards. It's not, well,
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
not a
complicated one because of the brand,
starfish
but
board.
Yeah. And on that note,
Not that kind of starfish. And what about the race boards as well?
we've got race boards. We've got some very nice race boards. So anyone that's looking, anyone around here in Northern Ireland that is paddling, maybe you've been paddling for a while, maybe you're looking at, your next board, we're going to have it. So shameless plug, come and just get in touch, come and play with them. That's what we're here for.
What was that?
Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
Ladies and gentlemen, good night.
Good night, everybody. Cheers. Cheers. Boom.